Hello, my name is Dr. Jennifer Sears, and I am the Director of Social Emotional Learning and Mental Health at Penn-Harris-Madison School Corporation. With everything going on, both globally with the pandemic, nationally with the social unrest, as well as just changes to our educational system, we know that some people might be feeling, well, a little stressed. And so we wanted to make sure we took some time to provide you with some information that we feel would be helpful during this time of the pandemic and the social unrest and the changes so that we can come to a place of healthy stress management. As we know, stress is probably impacting most of us. So I want to thank you for your time today to view this panel discussion. This is actually the first time we have done a virtual panel where we brought community partners together with PHM experts in the area. And so I'm really excited because we have so many wonderful people a part of this panel discussion today. And in my position, I'm really fortunate because I get to work with so many talented people in our school district and our community. And I think that that's part of this triangle of success, that we come together and we support our students, we support each other, and because together we're better. So today on the panel, we have several counselors from our middle school and our high school, as well as community partners from Youth Service Bureau, Notre Dame, Oaklawn Psychiatric Center, and Reflections Counseling. And I also want to note that PHM has MOUs with both Oaklawn and Reflections, and I'm excited to have that opportunity with them as these MOUs are fairly recent as of the summer of 2020. And I'm also excited that you are all viewing this virtual panel. So thank you for the time that you're taking today. So our agenda today starts off with Dr. Nancy Michael, who is the Director of Undergraduate Studies and Neuroscience and Behavior, and also an Associate Teaching Professor at Notre Dame. And she will talk about the neurobiology of stress, kind of in a nutshell. Then we'll have Dr. Holloman, who is a licensed psychologist at Reflections Counseling, talk about how we can help ourselves cope during stressful times. Next, Ms. Kim Neff, who is the Director of Child and Adolescent Outpatient Clinical Services at Oaklawn, will share information about the importance of adults modeling healthy coping skills and how we can best do that for our own children. Dr. Jenny Knapp, who's a psychiatrist at Reflections, will talk about how to instill a sense of psychological safety during stressful times. Then we'll have Lori Ellis, who is the supervisor for the Youth Development Specialist, which is a part of the Youth Service Bureau. She will talk about this community partnership that we have with YSB and services that YSB provides to our middle and elementary students. And then next we have a counselor from each of our middle schools. We have Mrs. Autumn Stout from Discovery Middle School, Mrs. Nancy Black from Grissom Middle School, and then we have Mrs. Stacy Eck from Schmucker Middle School. And they will each talk about how to access services should your student be in need of counseling services through the counseling department at the middle school. And then finally, we have Mr. Westra, who is the Director of Counseling at Penn High School, and he will talk about the counselors that are at the high school, as well as how to access the counselors there. So we hope that this time is enlightening for you and hopefully a time where we can reflect on some healthy stress management together. So at this time, I would like to turn it over to Dr. Nancy Michael.
Hi, so my name is Nancy Michael. I am the Director of Undergraduate Studies for the Neuroscience Behavior major at the University of Notre Dame. I want to thank the PHM District and Dr. Sears for inviting me to participate today. It really is such an honor. I was asked to do just a really brief crash course in the stress response system, so to hopefully give us all a little bit of insight as to why we might be feeling a little more tired than normal in the middle of this pandemic. So when we're talking about a stress response, we have to have an idea of what stressors are. So stressors are things in our environment that kind of have a natural quality of stress or a learned quality of stress. So in this slide, and everything can activate, right, through all of our sensory experience. So that'd be like sight and sound and smell and touch and taste, right? All of that information is coming in and being processed by our brain all the time. So whatever the stressor is perceived by our senses, comes in and activates a central stress response. So we talk about this as the fight or flight response sometimes, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, the HPA axis, but today we'll talk about it as the stress response or the fight or flight response. So we have that environmental stressor, right? Oh my gosh, there's a scorpion. Oh my gosh, it's coronavirus, right? And that sensory input comes in and it activates a series of cascades in our body, ultimately resulting in the release of cortisol. And so a lot of us that might have heard of cortisol, it gets a lot of popular press for being the stress hormone. Now we need it to wake up in the morning. The problem with cortisol is not that it's there, but when it starts to accumulate in the body. So in addition to this kind of peripheral cascade of hormones and endocrine factors, we also have a factor that's released into the brain called CRF, and that CRF inhibits a part of the brain called the hippocampus. And the hippocampus is really important because it's the main site of learning and memory within the brain. And so when we have activation of the stress response, we also have suppression of learning and memory systems within the brain. Now, under normal circumstances, this is okay because most of the time stressors are acute or they live for a short period of time. And what happens under normal circumstances is that as that cortisol is released into the blood, it will circulate back up through the bloodstream, back up to the brain. Cortisol talks to the hippocampus, brings the hippocampus back online, and the hippocampus shuts down the stress response. This is called a negative feedback loop. The situation that we find ourselves in now, however, is a little bit different, right? Because coronavirus is a really long thing that's continuing to go on and on and on, right? So coronavirus has become a prolonged chronic stressor. So this negative feedback loop that usually shuts the stress response down is broken in some way. So with continual activation of the stress response, we have continual kind of inhibition of the hippocampus, right? So we might start to feel a little bit more foggy. Like I know I certainly feel like my memory is just not what it was a year ago, right? My patience, right? Because so with all of these big emotions, we're also kind of having to constantly down-regulate or control or inhibit, right, all the feelings that we have about this, right? So I've noticed that my angry is always a little bit closer to the surface. I feel more tired than I usually do. And it's because all of these cortical systems, all of our top-down systems are trying to regulate all the stuff that's going on inside. So one of the most important things to remember, I think the only thing that gets us through is knowing how important we are to each other, not only in terms of our regular lives, but neurobiologically, the difference that makes. So no matter how old we get, our relationships with each other are always central to our well-being and health. There are other people on the panel that are going to talk much more about these factors, but I just want to reinforce neurobiologically, the best way that we can care for each other is to be present with one another, and really take the time to take care of ourselves and to take care of those around us, and to model that behavior of self-care so that we can make sure that we care for our children and our community as best as we can. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here today.
Next up, we have Dr. Heather Holloman, who is a licensed clinical psychologist at Reflections Counseling.
Hey everybody, I just wanted to talk to you about coping with the virus anxiety. We're living in a time right now where a common cold doesn't never feel like a common cold. A fever can cause some real anxiety. And I wanted to give you some ideas about taking care of yourself and also helping take care of some of these students too. So one big thing is stay informed, but don't be over-informed. So stay informed with trustworthy sources like the CDC and the World Health Organization. And try and stay away from the media that you're not sure about the content or where it came from, or if you feel like it's trying to incite panic in people. Pay attention to how you're feeling when you're watching the news, when you're on social media. And if you start to get that feeling in the pit of your stomach that lets you know that you're getting overwhelmed or overstimulated, know that it's a good time to step away and to do things to take care of yourself. Focus on the things that you can control, like wearing a mask in public, keeping your social distance from people, washing your hands, just good hygiene in general. Also, we need to really work on helping our students cope with this anxiety too, because students cope in a completely different way than adults cope. We know that our students are on social media all the time, and so we really need to be opening up these conversations with them so we can talk with them about what they're seeing on social media. What do they think about it? Do they believe it? How does it make them feel? And being able to kind of offer some objective opinions to them might be a really helpful conversation. We also need to recognize the impact that social isolation has on mental health for everyone, but particularly in our teenagers. I know a lot of us adults kind of look forward to not having any responsibilities to do and being able to just stay in and not do anything. But we need to remember that teenagers are very social beings, and they're used to being connected with their friends 24/7. And so we have to be mindful of the fact that this social isolation can really cause a lot of stress in teenagers. So we need to model use ourselves of healthy coping skills, like regulating how often we're on social media, taking breaks ourselves to go out and walk and get some fresh air, and being thoughtful about the things that we share, the memes and the posts that we put up on our social media, making sure that those are accurate and that we are, again, inciting panic in people. Finally, and most importantly, is taking care of yourself. During this time, we're all very, very stressed, and so there's lots of ways that you can reduce your stress level, which will also reduce your likelihood of getting sick. So taking care of your body, drink plenty of water, eat as healthy as possible, get as much sleep as you can. Pay attention to your emotional health. Pay attention to those warning signs of when you're feeling stressed and anxious, depressed and irritable, and do something about it. Again, go outside, get into nature and soak up that vitamin D. Connect with others in a socially distant, appropriate way, but being able to still make those connections with friends and family. One big thing is be gentle with yourself, with other people. Show as much grace as possible during this time when everyone is afraid. Information is changing left and right. We don't always get the same information from different officials, and so it's only natural that people are going to make some mistakes in the information that they give you or the choices that they make. And just remind yourself that we're all doing the best we can right now, and we're all scared and we're all anxious, and we can only do the best we can with the information we have. And finally, just practice gratitude. Remind yourself the things that you're thankful for and the things in your life that are going well. And a lot of times that helps combat some of that anxiety and depression. On my last slide, I left a lot of resources. So if anybody is in distress and needs healthcare, these are national resources. They're in Spanish and English, and they offer texting, calling, and access through their website.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Holloman, very much for sharing that information with us. Next, we have Ms. Kim Neff, who is the Director of Child and Adolescent Outpatient Clinical Services at Oaklawn Psychiatric Center.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to be talking about parent stress and healthy modeling of coping skills for your kids. So we all are affected by stress. For example, how many of you start your day by checking your phone before you even get out of bed in the morning, and likely to see not so good news? Does your school morning start off on a negative note? Yelling, rushing, more yelling, trying to get the kids out of the house. On top of that, work and family stress. After school, then, there's running kids to practice, grabbing fast food because there's no time to make dinner, and then homework. And then also dealing with the COVID stress, as Dr. Holloman already mentioned, and that includes like grieving loss of lifetime opportunities for your kids and your family. Missing out on your son's baseball season or your daughter's track season, prom, graduation, we've all been affected by these losses and that grieving. And then there's the frustrations with uncertainty and e-learning. Certainly adds a lot more to our stress level. And so what does your stress look like? Your stress reactions. Are you finding yourself more agitated, more easily irritated with the kids or with others, more reactive? What does your body language look like? What does your tone of voice sound like coming through as you're speaking to others, and your facial expressions? And, are your coping skills getting more negative? And we can talk about what some of those will look like as well. Next slide. So effects of stress. So it's really important to know, we all are feeling many, many stressors. But what we need to be aware of is that parental stress certainly has a trickle-down effect and affects everyone in the family. And when that stress builds up without any relief, it can affect how you interact with your kids and then how they feel. And our kids are very plugged into their parents. They're very sensitive to their parents' moods and their responses to stress. So we really need to be careful in not passing our unhealthy ways of coping to our children. So that buildup of stress can really leave us feeling very diminished in our capacity to parent and also keep up with all those demands of life, like laundry and dishes. Maybe they begin to pile up, or you're not getting bills paid on time because you're just too tired to take care of that. And we end up with these unhealthy coping mechanisms of binge watching TV, withdrawing from family, spending more time on social media, snapping at loved ones, and then unhealthy drinking, eating, and all those things our kids are paying attention to. And that social media one, as Dr. Holloman had mentioned, can be really an issue of creating more stress, but also creating more stress between you and your children. When you're spending more time on that social media and your kids are needing that attention from you, we start to, the kids start to pull away or find that attention from, other sources, or start acting out more to try to get that attention from you. So some healthy modeling ideas. First, create some healthy and realistic expectations for you and your family. With regards to your feelings, name it to tame it. Allow yourself to feel all of your feelings, and then, share that with your children as well. Name it to tame it, and just know that it's okay to talk about those feelings and process them. Practice organizational techniques and time management. Avoid that procrastination. Accept what you can and cannot do, and also ask for help when you need to. Practice being in the present. That can be so hopeful. You can't change what happened yesterday. You're not always in control of what's going to happen in the present, or in the future. So just be present. Create you time. Also really important. Even if that means getting up a half hour earlier each day to have your own peace and quiet coffee time. Engage in interests that feed your soul. Evaluate your lifestyle. What kind of things can you do to make it healthier? What things bring you comfort and joy? Maybe you need to, maybe end some toxic relationships. Practice gratitude. And you can do this in the car. You can do this with the kids. You can do it with dinner. And so modeling that practice of gratitude with the whole family. Practice mindfulness and deep breathing techniques and include the kids in that. A great deep breathing exercise with especially little kids is playing with bubbles. Blowing those bubbles can really help with that deep breathing. Give yourself a timeout when you need to. We're frequently giving kids timeout. Sometimes we need to model that for ourselves as well. Apologize and forgive. What a great way to model when that's appropriate. Get yourself and kids outside. Take a walk and enjoy nature. Take your medication, seek therapy if you need to. Set boundaries in your life, and be willing and ready to say no. Again, we talked about the social media fast or detox for you and the family. And also make sure to enjoy your children and your family. Next slide. So I've also included a couple of resources. So one is called My Strengths. This is an app. I guess I would compare it to the Calm app, which I know a lot of people are familiar with. This is a free app. There are lots and lots of resources for all kinds of things, nutrition, sleep health, depression, anxiety, just managing stress in general. You can access it through Oaklawn's account, and your login or your password would be community. Again, a free resource for you and your family. And then the last resource, this is something new that we were just informed of yesterday. It is called Parenting in Motion. It's a 3-day summit that is focusing on movement and other stress relieving opportunities. So really invite parents and their families to participate in that as another way to reduce stress. So thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Mrs. Neff, for sharing that information and offering some community resources. Next, we have Dr. Jenny Knapp, who's a psychiatrist with Reflections Counseling.
So first off, I just wanted to talk about what is a normal emotion right now, and that would be anxiety. Parents and students are experiencing greater levels of worry and stress, and that's fairly normal right now. We all hear that phrase, we're all in this together, but it still doesn't seem to make anxiety go away or diminish. But there are ways that we can lessen our anxiety. And this starts with a sense of control. And so we can assume some control, like Dr. Holloman had mentioned, by following mask protocol, practicing good hand hygiene, which includes not just washing our hands or using hand sanitizer, but also trying not to touch our face or our mask so much. And most of all, treating others with kindness. Anxiety is heightened in every age group. And so it's so important that we remember to just be kind to one another. The number one complaint that I am hearing across the board from all of my patients is actually related to uncomfortable social interactions that they are having, in which someone has been rude or insensitive. And so I think you've heard the other speakers mention repeatedly, like, get off social media at this point. But I think we also have to remember that just even in our live interactions with others, people are on edge. And so I think we need to make a more deliberate effort to just be kind and allow for the fact that everyone is dealing with heightened stress right now. Another key component to lessening the discomfort that comes with the unpredictability of this pandemic is to build a predictable routine. And school definitely helps with this. Believe it or not, human beings actually function better when we have consistent times for waking up, eating, and going to bed. And this all goes back to that circadian rhythm that people have heard of. So I really encourage every family to plot out a structured routine and do your best to stick with it. And lastly, just as Ms. Neff had noted, I just want to talk about the importance that parents play. Their influence can't even be measured. Children are remarkably tuned in to their parents' facial expressions and also their cautious tones of voice. So I want to just end with saying I really encourage everyone to do their best to model a calm and confident attitude about school, whether the kids are staying home or whether they are going to school or doing hybrid. Be calm and be confident. Try to avoid the negativity associated with the fact that things are different this year. Instead, this is an opportunity to try different things. And so I really encourage to do your best with that. This is a difficult time, but one of the, I think, most fantastic things about being human is being able to adapt, and we are all doing that.
Thank you so much, Dr. Knapp, for sharing that. Those are great pieces of advice. Next, we have Mrs. Ellis from Youth Service Bureau, who is a longtime community partner. In fact, PHM has had a partnership with Youth Service Bureau for over 3 decades. So, Mrs. Ellis, thank you.
Hi, yes, there's a youth development specialist in all 11 elementary schools, all 3 middle schools, and at Penway Alternative. And they can help and assist students and support students that are dealing with anxiety, peer conflicts, academic or behavior issues, and many other barriers. They can also assist with outside referrals to community agencies. So contact your child's school for more information.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Ellis. Next, we have Mrs. Eck. She'll start talking about some services that our counseling centers or counseling departments at our schools can provide. And then each of our middle schools will share information as well as our high school. So, Mrs. Eck.
Hi, so before you hear from our other school counselors, I wanted to talk to you briefly about how we connect with students through counseling. One of the first things we do is individual counseling. And we don't provide long-term therapy, but we definitely sit with students, we can talk them through issues, we can make referrals as needed, and we can do those in an individual way. We also do academic, social, and emotional lessons at school. We work with students through the classroom, we can do guidance lessons with them, and then we also provide group counseling, and so this might be a format where we're working with 5 to maybe 8 students, and we can do this through our advisory time or at lunchtime. That looks a little different depending on what school you're in. Now I want to turn it over to Discovery, and you can hear a little bit more about how you can contact your school counselor at Discovery.
Hi, my name is Autumn Stout, and I am a school counselor at Discovery for students with the last names A through K. Deanna Ward is a counselor here as well, and she has students with the last names that start with L through Z. And we encourage students to contact us via email or Google Meets or in person at school when necessary. We have a Canvas page for the students in our part of the alphabet. And on our Canvas page, we have links to many resources covering topics like stress management, as we've discussed today, as well as other topics as in organizational tips, strategies, study skills, tips, managing emotions overall, ideas for focusing when that is a struggle for a student, problem-solving ideas, and other such resources. On our Canvas page, we also make sure that students know how to contact us via email or Google Meet. And furthermore, students can go to the Discovery homepage and click on the Guidance tab. And under Guidance, again, there's contact information for email, or we have a link to our student appointment request form. And students can fill that out, and when they do, we get an email that alerts us that they would like to have an appointment with us, and it tells us a little bit about the need that they have, the reason, again, that they are reaching out to us. So those are just many ways and opportunities that students can reach out, as well as mentions, I think, to the teacher if they are here in the building.
Hi there, I'm Nancy Block. I'm one of the school counselors at Grissom Middle School, and I work with students with the last name A through K. And Miss Sherry Miller is another counselor here at Grissom, and she works with students with the last names L through Z. At Grissom Middle School, students and parents have several ways that they can access their school counselors and counseling services. Students and parents can visit the Grissom website by clicking on the tab labeled Guidance. Under the tab, students can scroll down and click on Schedule an Appointment. And once the student completes the appointment request, counselors are notified via email, and then we will contact the teacher and get a hold of the student and have them come down to our PAC office. An additional way is to access counseling services through our Canvas course. So every student has a Canvas class with the graduation year on them. So for example, our 6th graders have a Canvas class that's labeled Class of 2027. And in this class, counselors can shoot out information to students,
and they can receive communication from a wide range of topics, such as college and career, 21st century scholars, different social and emotional lessons, stress management, and they also, in this Canvas class, can directly schedule an appointment under the courses as well. And students can also reach out to us via email or talk to their teacher while they will get a hold of us as well.
I'm Stacy Eck, and I am the school counselor at Schwager Middle School for students in the first half of the alphabet with last names A through K. And then Mrs. Andrea Hoover is the school counselor for students' last names L through Z. The way that students can reach out to us is very similar to what you've heard from the other middle schools. Parents can email us. They can also call our main line and be connected to us that way. Students can request an appointment. There's a couple different ways that they can access this appointment form. They can go to our website and go to the guidance tab and find the counselor appointment form. They also receive a weekly newsletter that comes to students on Monday, and every Monday we make sure there's a link to that form in the newsletter as well. And then, like other schools, we also have a course in Canvas, and it is called Class of, and then the students' graduating class. And we also provide information and resources to our students and families that way.
Hello, everybody. My name is John Wester. I'm the director of the Counseling Center at the high school. Just personally want to thank all the guests here today. Just listening to everybody speak has been really great for myself and kind of getting that perspective. Sometimes as counselors, we even lose sight of that stuff. So I really appreciate the information and the message that's been shared today. As you can see here, we have our counseling staff here at the high school. As a director, I work with students that are in an alternative location, either Penway or night school. We don't have any this year, but our foreign exchange students as well. And then, as you can see, we have all counselors listed out there. In our 9th grade group, we have Mrs. Emily Lehman and Marty Kronk. They're splitting the alphabet in half. And then our grades 10 through 12 are kind of split between 6 different counselors, kind of working through the alphabets: Lynn Stratford, Sandy Hunter, Shane Varga, Amanda Bates, Maddie Watkins, and Janice Fitzgerald. So you can see the breakdowns there and their emails. Those 10 through 12 groups kind of had a shift this year with some of the alphabetical splits, trying to even out some of the caseloads and things like that. And then last but not least, we have Megan Vitagiri. She works with our students, generally speaking, who are being referred by student services, or they're in need of some additional intervention that maybe a school counselor can't provide. So she's been able to provide some extra support for our students. So another great resource here at Penn High School. So some ways to contact the counseling staff. Again, as very similar to what the mission at the middle schools, but very responsive to email. Now we have staff here full time, so we can get a hold of them over the phone. You can use that number there, and then work to be shifted to that individual counselor. And then you can also have appointments made through many different resources. You can use, again, those email communications, phone communications, and then we shared something called the virtual counseling office, which you can see up top here with that visual. Just a nice, fun way for students and parents to access the counseling staff. It was shared in the newsletter, and we'll keep sharing that out again. But basically what happens is when students are in that virtual counseling office, they can click on each Bitmoji, and then each Bitmoji will take them to a link to schedule appointments. So appointments can be scheduled through whatever process that's been sent through that counselor. Some of us are going right through the Google Calendar. Some have About Me pages that kind of take you to another link for scheduling appointments, so that's a great resource as well. Then last but not least, we have information on the website, so if you need emails, contact information like that. And then like others, we do have a Canvas course that we've shared students with. We're always putting information out, announcements out, things like that, and we'll keep putting some of this contact information there as well.
All right, thank you. And I love that creative way that people can reach out. And there's multiple ways to reach out for counseling support at all 3 of our middle schools, as well as our high school. And then, of course, if you are wondering about Youth Service Bureau services at the middle or the elementary level, please, again, contact your student's principal. So now I just want to make sure that you're aware of supports that are available for you. Dr. Holloman shared some supports and some resources and lifelines that are really important. Also, some employees carry employee assistance programs. And so if you are in need of supports for yourself, you may want to check with your employee to see if they have an assistance program that's available for you. There are also lifelines like the Suicide Prevention Lifeline. There's crisis hotlines right now. And then PHM has a Safe School Helpline, which is a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week communication service. And what that does is you call in and you can report any concerns that you have, and then those go straight to our Director of School Safety and Student Services, and then get filtered to our counselors or to our administrators as needed. So that is something that PHM offers for families and for staff to make reports that way as well. So I just want to reiterate, if it is an emergency, probably your best course of action would be to call 911 or to seek help that way, especially if it's after hours, just so we can make sure everybody stays safe, because safety is certainly a top priority here. So thank you all for listening to this panel discussion. And I hope that this was helpful and insightful for you as we think about just managing stress during a stressful time in our lives, a stressful season for sure. I will also want to thank Dr. Michael, Dr. Holloman, Ms. Neff, Dr. Knapp, as well as Ms. Ellis, Mrs. Stout, Mrs. Block, Mrs. Eck, and Mr. Westra for sharing your time and expertise today. Everybody spent time preparing for this and then sharing this information with all of you. And I think it's such a great resource. And I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart, to all of you who are on this panel and took time to share that. So please reach out if you are in need of anything. We are here for you, and we want everybody to stay healthy through this time. Thank you so much for your time. Have a wonderful day.